Welcome to the Side Hustle to Small Business podcast powered by Hiscox. I'm your host, Sanjay Parekh. Throughout my career, I've had side hustles, some of which have turned into real businesses. But first and foremost, I'm a serial technology entrepreneur. In the creator space, we hear plenty of advice on how to hustle harder and why you can sleep when you're dead. On this show, we ask new questions in hopes of getting new answers. Questions like, how can small businesses work smarter? How do you achieve balance between work and family? How can we redefine success in our businesses so that we don't burn out after year 3? Every week, I sit down with business founders at various stages of their side hustle to small business journey. These entrepreneurs are pushing the envelope while keeping their values. Keep listening for conversation, context, and camaraderie. Today's guest is Tiffany Hopkins, a certified health coach and nutrition specialist. Having experienced substance abuse in the past, Tiffany has found her passion in helping individuals, and more specifically, mothers taking back control of their lives by quitting alcohol. Tiffany, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'm excited to have you on because I think you're the first that we've ever had on the show specifically focused on this area that you're thinking about and working in. But before we start diving into that, tell us a little bit about you and what got you to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned that you wanted the short version, so I'll try to do it very quickly. But the short version is that when I graduated high school, I had my very first panic attack. And, I was diagnosed with panic and anxiety disorder. And being in my late teens, early 20s, entering into college and the social scene and the party scene, I found out very quickly that alcohol lowered my anxiety. What I didn't know was that it was only temporarily lowering my anxiety. And after I graduated with my bachelor's degree in psychology, I kind of took a left turn, if you will, and kind of, went down this path of alcohol, which then kind of led to some substance abuse, kind of harder drugs and things. Relying back on my faith in which I was brought up, I was able to kind of, as I described, climb out of this pit that I was in. And this kind of gave me, if you will, a purpose. I was going to school to be a social worker. So I worked with people who struggled with anxiety, panic disorder, could really relate to what they were going through. And eventually got a master's degree in social work. And now I own a private practice where I help women who struggle with anxiety disorders and alcohol abuse. And then I recently opened a sober health coaching business where I help moms specifically overcome their struggles with alcohol.
Yeah. So that's an interesting kind of segue that you've done there in adding on a second business, a coaching business. Like why, what was that motivation to start another thing on top of what you were already doing?
Right. So something that people may not know about the social work and counseling world is that we're very limited in who we can help. So because I'm licensed in the state of Ohio, I'm a licensed independent social worker, I can only help clients who live in the state of Ohio. There is legislation out there right now that's trying to kind of get rid of some of these rules because it really prevents us from helping, people who literally might live 15 minutes from my office across the river in Kentucky, right? But I can't help them because I'm licensed in Ohio only. And so in the coaching world, we have a little bit more flexibility. And so when I'm thinking about helping women or moms in particular, I want to be able to reach everybody who needs help, not just people who live in the state of Ohio.
Right. Oh, that's fascinating. Strange kind of laws and legislation that do all these weird things. And for people like you that live right on the border, yeah, exactly. It's a tough situation to be in. So with your first business, was that your first time ever doing something entrepreneurial, or had you done entrepreneurial things before that?
I had not. So I did community mental health for 12 years. And after I had my second second son, I became a stay-at-home mom. You could kind of, that was different. That was a new job, if you will, and the hardest job, by the way. I always tell people. So I did the stay-at-home mom thing. And when I decided to go back to work, I knew that I wanted to work in a healthcare setting. I have a passion for health and, taking care of our bodies. And so I did counseling for a primary care doctor's office. And while I was doing counseling there, COVID hit. And so for most people during the COVID pandemic, of course, it was devastating and, we lost lots of lives and things like that. But for me, it kind of presented itself as an opportunity to say, okay, well, I'm now forced to do telehealth, right? Because I was seeing clients in the doctor's office. Well, with COVID, that wasn't happening anymore. And so I was forced to do telehealth, and I'm sitting at my desk at my house, flipping loads of laundry in between sessions. And I'm like, this is actually kind of nice. I kind of feel like I found that balance, right? Like I could get my kids on and off the school bus. I no longer had that drive time to and from work. So that's when I was like, I feel like I could probably start my own private practice. And I literally just started Googling, like, how do you start your own private practice? So I started this during COVID.
Wow. And so in doing that, what was the most surprising thing that you experienced that you didn't know about running your own private practice?
Oh, the administration side, right? Like for counselors, specifically, or social workers, we are very well trained in how to be empathetic and compassionate and how to help you if you have anxiety. What they don't teach you in school is the billing side and how to work with insurance companies and, to all of your expenses and things like that. And that was literally extremely time consuming and a huge learning curve.
Yeah. The business side seems in so many professions to be kind of the thing that nobody learns and everybody needs. And I'm not sure why we don't do a better job of teaching some of these basic skills to everybody. I think we would be better off for all of us if everybody had at least some minor amount of business education, especially even if you're not going to run a business, because I think it helps you understand the businesses that you're in.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
So, okay. So that was new, dealing with all of that. Was there any entrepreneurs in the family that you had to lean on, or had anybody done anything entrepreneurial in your family before that?
Not necessarily. No. I mean, I grew up in a home with very hard workers. There was a lot of hard work ethic in my house, and so I did have that, I think, instilled in me. But I just, kind of was like, I think for me, it was more of the ability to also kind of have that stay-at-home mom role. My kids were still fairly young. And so it was that balance. It was, how can I contribute a little bit to the household income, right? While still helping to take care of the kids, because my husband travels for work. And so he does power lines. And so everything's dependent on the weather. So if there's a hurricane, like we can't predict some of this. So I have to be kind of the one to run the ship, if you will. So I tell my clients now when they call, to make appointments, I let them know ahead of time. I call myself a full-time mom and a part-time social worker or a part-time coach because, the house comes first.
Yeah. If something happens, it happens. And yeah.
Kids are sick. I'm staying home.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Was there anything that made you nervous when you decided to take that leap and start your first business there? Or now with the second one, like either way?
Well, money, obviously, I think that's everyone's, am I going to be able to provide? Am I going to be able to pay the bills? For me, what I personally did was I stayed and worked at the doctor's office while I built my private practice. So that way I still had an income coming in because, I'm like, is this going to work? I don't know. We'll see. So I still had that income. And then once I was able to make about the same amount that I was making at the doctor's office, then I gave my notice at the doctor's office. And so, with counseling and health coaching, there's, when you own your own business, there's no PTO, there's no vacation, there's no, so if I don't work, if I'm not seeing clients, I'm not making money. So there's a lot of that you have to consider.
Yeah. So those issues there, does it make you nervous then? Does it make you nervous now? Like, how did you deal with that?
I just show up to work. I very rarely take sick days or anything like that. Of course, it makes me nervous, but it's all in also, I think, how you market yourself and how you show up for your clients. I mean, you can't, when you own your own business, you cannot be, I don't want to use the word lazy, but you have to show up. There's a huge responsibility that, obviously you have to be responsible anywhere you work. But when you're an entrepreneur, I think that's a little bit extra weight that you carry.
Right. So this is interesting to me because, you started this whole kind of journey because of having a panic attack and anxiety and all of these things, right? There's a lot of anxiety around being an entrepreneur. So how do you balance that for yourself and don't allow the stress to overcome you in terms of having your own business? And then also family life can be stressful and anxiety producing, especially when you have young kids. So like, how do you deal with that for yourself?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll share that, in my 20s, I did a lot of work around my anxiety and substance abuse, right? I went to see therapists and support groups, and I really put in the work to heal, right? And so I take medication for my anxiety and panic disorder now. I do my own therapy, which I highly recommend for everybody. But I also, so for example, like this past weekend, we went out of town for my son's birthday, and I make sure to disconnect. And so on all of my social media platforms, I will let them know I am disconnecting for the weekend to spend time with my family. Because I think in this day and age, part of, obviously a lot of what we do is social media and computers and podcasts. And, at times it feels like I'm glued to my phone. And so making sure to disconnect and really reconnect, right, with what's most important.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Okay. So you've had now the luxury of a little bit of time of running your businesses and kind of reflecting back on all the things that have gone probably right and wrong. If you could go back in time and do something differently, what would that be?
So, I've been thinking about this and it's kind of a hard question. And not everybody will maybe get this, but for social workers in particular and health coaches, we like to get a lot of certificates and and pay for these, I'm certified in X, Y, and Z and whatever. And I think when I first started my businesses, I really kind of fed into that, like drank the Kool-Aid, if you will. I paid for a lot of certifications and, certificates. And in the end, I think I would have done that a little bit differently. I think I spent a lot of money on things that yes, helped me, right? Helped me become a better businesswoman, better entrepreneur, maybe a better coach. But I don't know that they were actually necessary, right? Like my master's degree was sufficient, my licensure, the supervision, the health coach certification. We have to take a pretty hard test actually to get that. And so sometimes I think we need all of this extra stuff. So I think I would have done that a little bit differently, not spent so much money on all of these extra trainings that I thought that I needed so that people would come to me, right? I think people come to me and stay with me because of my experience, because I can relate, because of my compassion, not because of all the certificates that I have.
Yeah. Do you feel like is it like trying to solve for imposter syndrome, or is it a crutch of some sort? Like, why do you think that is that so many people do that? Because you're not the only one. I see it all the time.
No, I know.
People
There's
have
a huge
so many
market out there for it, right?
Right. So what do you think that is? Why do you think people do that?
I don't feel like it's an imposter. At least for me, I don't feel like it's an imposter syndrome. I just feel like it's a like it's a another check, right? Like, oh, I got that check, you know, I
Right.
can add this to my Psychology Today profile, check, you know, like you want to feel like you're giving the best service that you can, I
Right.
think. And so I think sometimes when we do these extra trainings, that's what we're hoping for. You know, I
Yeah.
think it's genuine where it comes from, but I don't
Yeah.
know that it's necessary, right?
It's interesting because I've seen this as well. I've been a part of a number of different organizations, leadership development, things like that. And you see these people that go through them, and I feel like it's just resume fodder for them, right? Like they're not engaged after the program ends. Like, and I'm one of those people that I stay engaged. Like I just had a 10-year reunion for a group that I'm a part of. We all got together. I mean, it was maybe a third of the class, out of 80 people, about a third showed up. And so you can see the people that are engaged, and for the rest of them, it's exactly what you say. And I don't know what the value is in that. I don't know if it actually does anything for you.
Yeah, I
If
don't
it's just a
know.
checkbox, right?
And in this day and age too, there's lots of memberships, right? And so it's like I'm gonna be a member of this and a member of that, and so yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about like the business itself, and like the things and the challenges that you see with people, because I think you might be able to provide some good advice to some of our listeners who are aspiring entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs already. You've seen it, the anxiety. You can see how that can happen with entrepreneurs. What's some pieces of advice for somebody that's listening that is dealing with anxiety or is dealing with the chaos of running a business and doesn't know how to handle that stress?
Yeah. Well, I mean, self-care obviously would be a huge piece, in taking care of yourself, and whatever that looks like for you, right? It could be going to therapy. It could be just exercise, eating well, sleeping well. But then I think the other piece that I had to kind of learn along the way is delegating some of your responsibility, right?
Interesting.
Like I
Yeah.
spent so much time doing my own social media, not realizing that I could hire a virtual assistant,
Right.
and now, talking about the billing side, now I've hired a biller. And so these are like, I know they sound very simple, but they were very aha moments to me. So I was like, I will pay whatever to like hand this off to someone else. So, I think that really helped though lower my anxiety and my stress and allowed me to be more present for my clients, knowing that some of the workload was being handled by people that quite frankly do it better than I do.
Right. What caused that aha moment for you to be like, oh, I should get somebody to do this instead of me?
What caused it? I think when I started the coaching business, right? And then I had two businesses, and the counseling, when you're a licensed social worker and things, you are paneled with insurance companies. And I'm not going to say that there's not a lot of marketing, but it's definitely different with the counseling than coaching. So coaching, you have to market yourself. You have to get yourself out there. We don't take insurance quite yet. Some people are starting to, but so we're not paneled. There's not like a Psychology Today, like the counseling world has. Psychology Today is like a directory where people can go to find a counselor. There's not a lot of well-known health coach directories out there. So you really have to get yourself out there. And so the whole marketing piece was new to me when I started my coaching business. And so that's when I was like, I need help. Right. And so, of course, I belong to a group that taught me and showed me how to, hire a VA, hire a biller to alleviate some of the workload.
Yeah. So that was a good group to be a part of.
That's still a good group to be a part of. Yes.
I want to make sure it's clear to our listeners as well as to me. You mentioned something. You said paneling. What does that mean?
Mm-hmm. So if you are credentialed, so in the counseling world, in my counseling business, if I accept Anthem, let's say, as an insurance, then you are what they call credentialed or paneled with the insurance company.
Oh, got it.
So members, if I'm a member of Anthem, I can call or get online and they will send you a list of providers that are credentialed or paneled with Anthem.
Okay. That
Does
they
that
work
make
with
sense?
and they'll do
I'm
the
in
reimbursements
network.
and all that stuff.
Right.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
in network with Anthem.
Okay.
And
That's what
so,
paneling means. Okay.
Yes,
got
that's
it.
what paneling means. Health coaching, as of right now, insurance doesn't want to pay for that. So that's another episode. I'll just stop there.
Much longer episode that we'll do some other time. Okay. Last question for you. What would you tell somebody who is like you, that's thinking about taking the leap and launching a side hustle or taking their side hustle and turning it into a full-time business? What advice would you give them?
Yeah. Surround yourself with like-minded people, right? People that have kind of paved the path before you, because there's so much knowledge out there. And instead, like I said, I started just Googling, like, how do I start a private practice? And there are people out there that are coaches themselves, right? Business coaches, things like that will actually help you get started. And so I would say, try to plug yourself into people like that will help you with step-by-step guidelines, right, on how to start a business. Because I think in the long run, it'll save you time and money that could be spent, building your business.
Right. Okay. I love it. Tiffany, this has been fantastic. How can our listeners find and connect with you online?
Sure. So on Facebook and Instagram, I am at Sober is Beautiful. On my websites are Mind and Body Restoration LLC.com. That's my sober health coaching website. And then for my counseling, it's just Tiffany Hopkins onlinecounseling.com.
Love it. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Side Hustle to Small Business podcast, powered by Hiscox. To learn more about how Hiscox can help protect your small business through intelligent insurance solutions, visit hiscox.com. And to hear more Side Hustle to Small Business stories or share your own story, visit hiscox.com/side hustle to small business. I'm your host, Sanjay Parekh. You can find more about me at my website, sanjayparekh.com.